Okay, so today we're tackling a topic that's really important and affects a lot of people.
Yeah.
Navigating the world of breast cancer grants.
Right.
And, just imagine you're dealing with a diagnosis, you're going through treatment, and then all of a sudden there's this whole other layer of financial stress that you're dealing with on top of everything else.
Absolutely. I mean, the cost of treatment can be just astronomical.
It is.
And very overwhelming for people.
So that's kind of what we want to do with this deep dive, is help people understand, how these grants work, where some of the pitfalls are, and ultimately, give you some good tips.
Yeah.
For finding the resources you need.
Absolutely. And you might be surprised too at just how specific some of these grants are. Like you were saying, childcare help, but only for stage 2, or only for, a specific type of treatment.
Right.
It's a maze out there.
It is a maze.
But the good news is there are success stories. It is possible to navigate this system.
Right.
It's just not always intuitive.
No.
So let's break down some of those challenges.
Yeah, let's talk about what makes it so hard.
Okay.
Like, I think the first thing that jumps out at you is, like, all the eligibility criteria. Like, every grant has a very specific list of requirements that you have to meet.
Yeah, and that's really by design.
Right. To sort of target the funds where they're most needed.
Exactly, to target the funds, to make sure that they're going to the people who need them most.
Right.
But the side effect of that is you end up spending hours and hours researching grants that you don't even qualify for.
Right. So tip number 1.
Yeah.
Don't get discouraged by that initial search.
Yeah,
it's about finding the right fit.
Right.
Not every fit. So are there ways that people can streamline that process? Like,
absolutely.
How do you even know where to begin?
So there are some organizations like the Patient Advocate Foundation who actually have online tools now where you can input your information.
Oh, cool.
And they'll generate a list of grants that you might qualify for.
Oh, that's smart.
So it's a really great place to start.
Yeah, that's great. So less time sifting, more time actually applying.
Exactly.
Which, speaking of applying the paperwork, is intense.
Yes.
It's like they want you to give up.
It really can feel that way.
Yeah.
And I think, from the grant giver's perspective, they need to verify information. They want to make sure the funds are used correctly.
Right.
But yes, the volume of documents can be very daunting.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon to need medical records, income statements, even essays explaining your situation.
Yeah, and I can imagine that feels very invasive on top of everything else that you're going through.
Absolutely, and I think it's important to remember that you do have a right to ask questions about why certain information is needed. You're not just, you don't have to just blindly provide everything they ask for.
Right.
You can advocate for yourself in that process.
Yeah, don't be afraid to advocate for yourself.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've found the right grants.
Right.
We're tackling the paperwork mountain. But then the issue of funding itself.
Right.
Is there enough to go around?
That's a major challenge, sadly.
Yeah.
The demand for these grants often outstrips the available funding.
Right.
But there are some things that people can do to improve their chances.
Okay, what are some tips?
One thing is to look for smaller, less well-known organizations.
Okay.
Their applicant pool might be smaller, even if the grant amounts are too.
So think niche, think small.
Exactly.
Okay.
And timing plays a role too.
Oh, does it?
A lot of these organizations have very specific grant cycles.
Okay.
So keeping an eye on their websites or subscribing to their newsletters can really help you stay ahead of the curve.
So it's almost like you need a strategy for this.
Exactly.
It's not just random applications.
You really do need a strategy and to do your research.
And speaking of research, how do people even find these grants in the first place?
Right.
It's not like there's one giant list.
No.
Somewhere.
And unfortunately, that is a huge pain point.
Yeah.
The lack of transparency about what's available is a common complaint that we hear.
I bet.
But this is where your healthcare team and social workers can be really invaluable allies.
Okay.
Because they often have knowledge of local resources that might not be widely advertised.
So don't be shy about reaching out and asking for that help.
Exactly. It's not a sign of weakness. It's being smart about your search.
Right.
And remember, even if you're in a region that seems underserved, there are national organizations like the Breast Cancer Research Foundation that offer grants regardless of location.
So location isn't a complete deal breaker?
It's not a complete deal breaker, but but it can definitely be a factor.
But, we'd be remiss not to acknowledge that this whole process takes an emotional toll.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just paperwork and deadlines,
Right.
It's constant rejection and uncertainty.
It's very demoralizing, and I've seen it firsthand with my patients,
Yeah.
I had one patient, Sarah,
Okay.
who was incredibly persistent. She applied for grant after grant after grant, and she kept getting denied.
Right.
And then finally, a small local charity
Oh, wow.
that was focused on single mothers with breast cancer
Okay.
approved her application,
Wow.
and they were able to cover her rent for 6 months,
Wow.
which was the lifeline she needed.
See, that's what I mean about those niche organizations.
Exactly.
They can really step in.
Right.
And it's more than just the money.
Right.
It's knowing that someone sees your struggle.
Absolutely. And I think Sarah's story is a reminder that even when it feels hopeless, persistence really does pay off.
Right.
So keep advocating for yourself.
Right.
Keep reaching out.
Uh-huh.
And remember, every little bit of support helps.
Yeah, that's a powerful message.
Thank you.
So before we wrap up, is there like one piece of advice that you would give to someone starting this grant journey?
I would just say don't give up.
Yeah.
Even with all the challenges we've talked about, there are resources out there waiting to be discovered. And the more we push for a more transparent and equitable system, the easier it will become for everyone.
I completely agree.
So
to all our listeners out there, you're not alone in this.
You're not alone.
Arm yourself with information.
Yes.
Connect with your support network.
Absolutely.
And keep fighting for the resources that you deserve. We're rooting for you.
We are rooting for you.
That's it for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, guys, for taking the time to sit with us here on It Takes Two podcast. And go ahead and like and subscribe so you can stay tuned with what we have coming up next. Again, my name is Dejanice Watson. Thank you so much for joining us here on It Takes Two. Until next time, stay safe. God bless you.